Hello and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to create the structure for our app using HTML. I am inside my HTML file from my text editor directory. So the very first line of code you need to specify in an HTML document is the doc. The doc type is not part of the HTML document. It's just a declaration to notify the web browsers that are trying to display this page that this content of the page is an HTML document. That's what the declaration is. I have introduced a couple of HTML tags, line 2 and 3. Line 2 there is where the beginning of the HTML document starts from. That's the opening tag. Line 4 is the closing tag. You can tell the tags match because you can see the dotted lines under the HTML and that. So to distinguish between the opening and closing, the closing normally has a slash before the tag name. All right. And if you have any attributes, it's usually included in the opening tag. I've introduced an attribute in line 2 called lang, which stands for language, and I've set the value to equals to English, which is en for short. So with attributes, you enclose the values in quotes. Attributes are there to provide extra information about the element. So every other HTML tag or element we will write will be embedded or nested inside this HTML. So any content between the opening HTML and closing HTML is regarded as an HTML document. I have introduced the head tag on line 3. So that's the opening head tag and that's the closing head tag on line 8. Within the head tag, you have several other tags. The head tags, basically, you can't see its content when the page is viewed. It's mainly there for informational purposes to the web browsers. So inside the head tag, I have got a title tag, basically, which displays the title of the web page. I've also on line 5 got a reference to my style sheet. And I've got a main style sheet, and I've also got a link on line 7 to Google. Okay, so Google, this link here has some special fonts which I want to use for the project. So this is a link to that font I want to use. Line 7 is a script for jQuery. We'll be using some jQuery code. jQuery is a JavaScript library. So we're going to be using some of that code in our JavaScript. So in order to have reference to the jQuery library, you need to include it in the head section. That's what I've done in line 7. So this is a reference to the jQuery library. It saves me installing the library on my computer. I can just access it via that link here. I have introduced a couple tags in line 4 and 5. These are meta tags and they've got attributes in them. The line 4 meta car set. The car set basically refers to the encoding type. That is the type of characters that will be used that this page supports. So the standard for all web browsers is UTF-8. Anyone using UTF-8 should be able to read most characters. Line 5 meta tag, I've got a attribute called name and the value is viewport. I've also got another within that line of code called content and the value is width equals to device width, comma, and then it's got the initial dash scale equals 1.0. What that means basically is that the on line 5 is that this page can be viewed by any device regardless of the screen size. So you can view it with a small screen or large screen. It will automatically resize and that initial scale means that you can zoom. That's the initial scale to zoom. So it allows you to zoom in and zoom out. All right, that's what that's for. I have introduced the body tag. The body tag is where the main content of the web page will be displayed. Okay, so anything in the body tag is the content that people actually see when they view the web page. So inside the body tag, I have got some other tag nested. I've got an input tag, okay, and the type is text. So that's where people will you actually have to type something, okay. And I've given it a placeholder of name. I've also got another, notice the input tags, I've given them ID attributes, which we will use later to all right, apologies, I've had to change the code. I actually inserted the wrong code, which was input tag. We don't really need input tags here because we're doing a quiz, so apologies for that. So I've had to replace that code. Basically the body tag here, that's the opening body, and this is the closing body tag. Okay, let me just indent that a bit. Okay, so I've got a div here on line 15. This will be the main container. It's called quiz container, so this will wrap all the other divs. And you notice the div begins there and ends here, which means it's a wrapper for the other contents. All right, so I've got h1 tag, which is a heading tag. That's just a title on line 16. On line 18 to, let me just bring this up a bit. So from line 17 to 23. So we've got several div tags here. This div tag called class, notice of giving them attribute of class. We'll be using the class names for styling purposes. So giving all of them an class attribute with the values here specified. So line 17, we've got a class div with the name question, and we've got a UL, which is the unordered list. This is where we'll have to make a selection of the choices for the quiz. The selection will be line 19. The div will be that will be the message for the quiz. Line 20 is the result, that will pop up after the quiz. You know your answers. Line 21 is the next button, so you click next to show the next question. So all these classes we will use later in our CSS to style these divs, okay, to make them more pronounced. And then I've got a break tag here just to create some space underneath this button. And then finally we've got a script tag. It's always good to attach your script tag at the very end of your HTML document. This script here refers to our JavaScript here, which we will write later. The reason for inserting the script at the bottom and not in the head is that the script will only execute after the rest of the page has been loaded. If you insert it in the head, it will not work because it may prevent the page from loading. So it's always best to insert your script at the bottom of the page, just before the closing body tag. All right, that way the page will load completely before the script is executed. So I'll save this and then we can have a look and see what the document looks like at the. All right, so I'm in the directory. I'll just click to open and then we can see. Okay, so this is what the page looks like at the moment. It doesn't look much, but when we start writing our JavaScript code, we're gonna use that to make this page a bit more interactive. So that's it for this lecture. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.